And all right, we're here with Athena Perez. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm excited.
Well, I'm glad you're excited. I'm very excited as well. I was gonna actually say, hey, we're here with best-selling author Athena Perez, but then as I was gonna say it, I was like, maybe that's not true. But your book, Lifting the Weight, and weight is spelled W-A-I-T for those that get inspired and motivated and want to purchase it. But has it hit any sort of charts on Amazon or anything?
Yeah, it's pulling newest bestseller in I think 5 or 6 different categories, which I mean you only get 8, so it couldn't have been any better.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to brag. As you know, my book, bestseller of their day. I think I was in. Would you say yours was 5 or 6? I think mine was 6 or 7. So good job, but not quite as as
Look
good
at
as
you.
bestseller. No, I was like, people ask me about that bestseller thing all the time, and I'm like, you know what? On Amazon, you kind of figure out the best
changes
way.
by the hour, so
Yeah. So as long as you touch it for a second, it's like a PR. I obviously want to talk about everything. I want to talk about everything in the book, but a lot of people ask me, and I'd like to hear from you when you talk about writing a book. Did you explore, going through the standard publishing route, or did you know you were going to do a self-published book?
Well, it was actually reversed. I always thought that I was going to do self-published. But then Greg Amundsen picked it up and said, hey, I want to publish it for you. So that's the route that I ended up going.
Oh, okay. I got, I saw Greg Amundsen had written the forward, and I just didn't, he's written, he's been on the show, amazing, one of the most amazing human beings you can meet, Greg Amundsen. For those that don't know, he's the OG fire breather in CrossFit.
That's right.
Like, when I started CrossFit, he was the guy on, before Matt Frazier and Rich Froning, you were watching Greg Amundsen. There's a very funny old video of him doing Helen on a track, and he basically disappears for about a minute and a half every round, doing his run. Then he comes back, or you can see him doing G.I. Jane. So he actually published it for you. I didn't even realize he had a publishing company now.
It's called Eagle Rise Publishing. And
what was your connection to Greg?
Oh, funny story. So when I was out in California getting my L1, I met 2 people from his box. 2 of his coaches were there taking my L1. And I woke up the morning that I was supposed to head out. The class is over, your body's sore. And I thought that I was going to be heading out to the airport, and something was like, hey, you need to go down to this box. So I followed the prompt and ended up down at Amundsen's gym, saw the 2 coaches that I had met, and I was like, wow, small world. And Greg wasn't supposed to be there that day, but he ended up walking in, and totally unexpected, wasn't expecting to meet him or anything. And he ended up sitting with me for probably a little over an hour and just learning about me and my story. And that's how we met. And then fast forward about a year and a half later, I was doing one of his Bible studies, and he's like, Athena, you're writing this book. Let's get it published. And I was like, okay, here we go. So that's kind of how that happened.
Yeah, Greg is the kind of guy that you don't sit down and chat for 2 minutes. You chat for an hour, and you leave that conversation inspired in so many different directions. Whenever I talk to him, I'm like, how does this guy maintain such a positive outlook all the time, and B, this energy? I mean, if you listen to the show, it's like he's just like, you could ask him like, what'd you have for breakfast? And he's like, let me tell you about this amazing breakfast. I'm like, okay.
It's so
Greg,
true.
calm down.
That makes me laugh. It's so true. Well, even funnier though, what inspired me about Greg is that he ended up giving me a copy of his book. Well, he's written several, but the one that
which one?
It was called The Warrior and the Monk. And
read that. Yeah, great book.
Yeah, it's fantastic, right? It's a quick little read, but it's impactful. And I was reading it on the plane back from there, And that was what inspired me to write. I knew I wanted to write before that, but I knew, okay, how I was going to write it. I felt like I had read my own story.
Well, so let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the bulk of it, you've lost 225 pounds. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So you've lost, you can look at that as you've lost 1.5 of me,
Right.
1.25 of a fern, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
But so if you've lost 225 pounds, what were you at your highest weight?
That's actually a little bit of a mystery. We use 500 as the number because we really don't know. Most traditional scales only go to 450, and mine was erroring out. So when I started losing weight, it took the first month to start registering on the scale.
Yeah.
So we that as a guess. It could have been higher. We don't know. I'll never know.
Well, and it's true because, in my book, I talk about the story of how I helped someone lose, well over 200 pounds as well. His name's Murph. And we say the same thing. It's kind of like we're guessing what it is, but I think his scale topped out at 400, but he was, certainly pushing that 500-pound mark. So, 225 pounds, absolutely incredible. Did you, you talked about wanting to write the book.
Yeah.
What came first? Was it, I want to write a book because I want to write a book, or was it, I lost all this weight, now I have a story to share?
That's a great question. I would say the latter of those two. There was a lot of different drivers. The first one was, I felt like my faith it's just based on faith. I felt like this was something that I needed to do. The second one happened because of the CrossFit video, the very first one that came out. This is the one that Mike Koslap and Tyson Oldroyd had commissioned, Savan. And there was a lot of feedback from that video, and my life just went crazy. But there was a lot of response to it where people would reach out and they would say, "Hey, Athena, I had these things happen to me too, and they weren't what you went through, but, and it was something that was a reoccurring theme. And I just kept hearing it over and over again. And what inspired me to write the book is that, people think that you just walk into a CrossFit gym and, you lose a couple 100 pounds and ta-da, that's the story, but it was not. And so that's why I opted to write the book, is to this isn't the story. This is the story. So.
And that's, I think for most people, at least that are writing, quote unquote biographies or nonfiction, that's what it comes from, right? Like, hey, I've got this story that I now want to share with everybody else.
Yeah.
My dog, whenever I'm on a call, tries to find the toy that has the loudest squeaker in it. So sorry, just stepped away to grab that.
I've got two of my own, so I get it.
Whoever made squeaky toys for dogs, needs to go completely out of business. I don't know they don't care if it's squeaking, but I care.
I had to lock mine in the basement.
The dogs or the squeaky toys?
No, they're down in the dungeon right now.
Yeah, and then one of my favorite is this squeaky, and it's basically now lives on the kitchen counter because I just take it away all the time. And my wife is like, "Is this where we keep it?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's where it lives." So, I don't want to give away the book, and like I mentioned, I have not read it yet. I'm gonna go get it on Amazon as soon as we are done. But so if I'm asking questions that are giving it away, feel free to ask as much as you want or answer as much as you want. And I'm sure, spoiler, she loses the weight. Spoiler alert.
I'll be ready to filter.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's so much more in it. But talk to me about the title first. What's about the change in spelling of weight? Obviously, most people, when you see lifting the weight, you would assume it is referring to weight as far as, bumper plates or kettlebells, but you have it in the term of hey, we're waiting for something, as in, delaying time.
Mm-hmm.
So Where did that come from?
Yeah, that assumption is correct. The weight, so the reason why I spelled it differently, W-A-I-T, is because part of the story is about talking about and recognizing that the physical weight, W-E-I-G-H-T, was not the problem. Food by itself wasn't the problem. The weight itself was not my problem. It was all of the things that I was running away from. That was the issue of the problem. So inadvertently, I waited. And we wait a lot because we don't want to have to deal with it. We, push it back in the corner and hope that we won't ever have to deal with it. And sometimes that's how we solve our problems. It's how I did. I just pushed in a corner and thought it would just go away, but it didn't. So that's why it's called WAIT.
And I think it's a common thread with people, especially, we see it a lot in weight loss, but also in new habits or new hobbies that they want to create, where it's like, I'll wait till Monday. The famous quote of all good diets start on Monday.
Yeah.
I was guilty of it too. I mean, the things that we don't want to do, right? For me, it was never about food or exercise, but it'll be like, all right, I'll start meditating on Monday. I'll start doing this on Monday.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, totally.
What's your opinion on why people are like that? And secondly, what are some of the things you can tell them to do to avoid that? Like, hey, no, just start now.
Well, I mean, why do people do it? Well, I can tell you why I did it. Let's see. I think we try to push it off because we know that there's something in there that we're going to have to face. And most of the time it's hard stuff. And I don't know about you, but I mean, if there's something hard that I know I'm going to have to deal with, and it's either going to be physically painful or emotionally painful, and I can get away with pushing it off for a couple of days, then yeah, it's really easy to say, you know what, I'll do that on Monday. And then hopefully by Monday, I will have worked up the courage to deal with it. Or it's going to be easy on Monday just to say, nah, push it off for a couple more days.
Yeah. I mean, like even right now, for example, Fern and I are writing a new book about coaching, and I'll open up the document, I'll start to write, and I'm like, let me check my email. Let me take the dogs for a walk. We just kind of, when something's hard, like you said, it's like, we're just delaying it, rather than attacking the hard thing. We find all these, and also I think we look at it like it's, you lost 225 pounds. If you would have just thought to yourself, hey, I have to lose 225 pounds, you never would have started.
No.
But if you just make that first step, like I need to eat a good breakfast today.
Yeah. And shoot, that's such a gnarly question because there's so many different I think that if I had tried when I started, we should be clear about one thing, is that weight is still very much a work in progress. It's still an ever moving target, by the way. But I think one of the things I learned, and this is one of the things I talk about in there, was learning how to not be so avoidant. Like there's only one way to deal with anything, and that's you're going to have to face it, or to your point, you're going to be delaying the inevitable, right? But I think the key is that we always try to bite off way more than we can chew, and then we set ourselves up to fail. Like I always used to say, I'm going to get on this new plan and I'm going to lose 50 pounds by June. And every time I did that, and then I didn't hit the goal, one, because it was not reasonable, but two, it started that vicious cycle all over again. I was disappointed, and then you started all over again. So when I started, I really only focused on that one day. You know how, like you say, it's the best hour of your day. Like for me, it was the best one day of the week. I only had to think about that one day. Wake up in the morning. Hey, can I stay on my plan today? That sounds a whole lot less intimidating and threatening than, oh my gosh, what am I going to do about this whole month?
Yeah. And I think, one of the questions I wanted to ask you too was, your writing strategy, because people ask me all the time, how did I write this book or that book? And I'm like, man, I would just commit to 200 words. And if I said, hey, I'm going to go write 3 chapters today, I never would have started. But if I was like 200, And I stole that from, I think it was Seth Godin or Tim Ferriss, where they're like 200 crappy words a day, and if you get to 200 words, it's rarely crappy. And if you get to 200 words, you rarely stop. But what was your strategy to accomplish this?
That's so true. You can apply that to just about anything, right? I had the same strategy, although mine was slightly different in the beginning. I committed to 500. That was mine, like 500, and it doesn't matter how good or bad it is. Just sit down and write 500 words. And if you really think about it, writing 500 words, I mean, you can do that in less than an hour, if you're really determined. So that's all I did. But the first draft, I kept telling myself, it really doesn't matter how this turns out on the first draft. Just get it out. It doesn't matter how bad it is. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about spelling. Just head sludge on paper and get the story down. And then once you get it down, then you can start hacking it up from there.
Oh yeah, mine would have like those red and blue lines all over the place, because I was just like, if I go back and fix everything, I'll never keep going.
Oh yeah.
So many. You're trying to write. I'm thinking faster than I could type. How long do you think it took you from the day you said, okay, I'm writing this book, to not till it was published, but till you were, I learned you can edit forever. Until you were like, I'm done editing. I have to hand this off to Greg or somebody else.
At some point. Yeah. At some point,
it's like George Lucas, right? 30 years later, he's still editing Star Wars, right? You could never clean, it's never going to end. How long was it for you from day one till the day it was out of your hands?
Just shy of 2 years.
It's a long time.
It is very long time, but some of that time doesn't count because I was down for like 10 months where I couldn't work on the book at all.
Was that when you had knee surgery and knee replacement?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So during that time when I was on all these narcotics, I don't know what the book would have sounded like if I had continued to write during that time. It would have been a different book.
It would have been a very different book, but equally entertaining.
Yeah. But here's the funny thing that happened. And I don't know if this happened when you were writing your book, but I was kind of upset that it was taking that long. But when I got back on the horse after surgeries were done and I was off the meds and I felt like my, the brain fog had cleared up a little bit. When I read back through that head sludge, I called it, there had been a lot of time to reflect. And I'm glad now looking back that I had that 10 months, because some of the positions that I had had before had softened a bit and my perspective had changed. And maybe that was just going through the surgeries and just, I don't know, there's a lot of humility there. And so I'm glad I had that time to think about things, because I think it changed a lot of the things I talked about. So it ended up being a blessing in disguise.
No, I agree with you. I think when you're right, it's like anything. When you're doing something creative, where you are in life has such a impact on it. And giving yourself those 10 months probably, changed your headspace and helped you attack it from a different angle.
It really did. Yeah. I think it was a different book because of it. Yeah.
What was harder, writing the book or losing the weight?
Writing the book.
Yeah. Because, so if you had to do, so if I said, okay, you have to lose 225 again or write another book, you'd say, slap that weight on me and I'm going to do that.
Well, I think the first chunk, like that first 187 pounds came off in less than a year. So, it just came off. This last 100 plus pounds, 100 and change, it's brutal.
What are you still looking to lose?
I have about 100 to lose. But again, everybody always says, well, what do you want to get down to? Was that your next question?
No, I don't. Yeah, that's relative. And
I don't know what the goal is. I kind of have a loose goal based on this is where I think I need to be, but I've never been there. So I don't know what it's going to feel like or look like, so it's a moving target.
Yeah. And like you said, it's like most things, and I think that's why for so many people, weight loss isn't necessarily the hard part. It's keeping the weight off. That's the hard part. And especially like you mentioned, the first 180 pounds melt off of you. And for a lot of people,
Yeah.
they realize that. I've worked with enough people that have like, you lose the first 20 pounds and then all of a sudden it's like, now the work begins, because now
Yeah.
those small details matter. Like you probably
Mhm.
lost weight and still enjoyed a slice of pizza here and there.
Oh yeah.
Where now, not that you shouldn't enjoy a slice of pizza, but it will impact what the scale says tomorrow.
Yeah,
We're at,
that piece of pizza shows. I can't hide it anymore.
yeah, where at first it's like, oh, I can eat a pizza, I can eat a cupcake, and I still lost 5 pounds this week.
No, I'm not that lucky anymore.
Yeah, now when and it's like anything. It's like the games athletes. The closer you are to the top, and the closer you are to your peak and your absolute capacity, the more stretching matters and mobility matters and recovery matters. So you're peaking. You're peaking at this
Totally.
point in life.
Yeah.
So and I'm sure you talk about it in the book, but
Mhm.
tell me about the first step and what made you really commit to this. Because correct me if I'm wrong. I don't, and then we were talking about it briefly, but we've met before. But I think when we've met, you were
Mhm.
either in the midst of this weight loss or you were not even begun.
We met. Um, we met after I had lost the first 200.
Okay, so you had lost some. I just,
Yep.
I talked, I don't know how to say this in a nice way. So don't. I hope no one listening takes offense. But I'm always impressed / surprised by people that need to lose weight but are at these CrossFit competitions volunteering.
Mhm.
And the reason I say that is it's such a lifestyle. And I'm like, okay, you're here, you're part of this lifestyle, but something's not clicking for you. Something's not connecting.
Well, okay. So let me be objective. When you first met me that day in the affiliate lounge, did you look at me and say, "Oh, she needs to do something about her diet"? What you didn't know was that had already changed, and that had been a work in progress for a year. So when you're out there and you're looking at people at the games, or you see people that are overweight, like, couldn't we assume, like, yeah, they're on their game? It's a process.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. And certainly don't judge a book by its cover. And
Yeah.
I'm not referring to you either. But I see people that
Hmm.
and again, maybe it's me judging a book by its cover, but you see people at the volunteering at the games, and you're like,
Hmm.
man, do they do this thing? And I always think it'd be like me showing up volunteering at like Comic-Con, even though I have no idea anything about comic books or sci-fi. Be like, oh, I just like to be around these people. But maybe, hey, maybe that's what it takes. Maybe that's the motivation a lot of people are looking for
I
also.
Yeah, I would say it is. Like, what better way to motivate yourself than to get in and around it? I mean, on
Yeah, I
any level.
mean, I think I spoke about it briefly, but somebody downloaded my audiobook and they were like, hey, can you recommend a CrossFit gym? And I was like, well, you don't go to one? They're like, no, I downloaded your book and now I want to do CrossFit. And I was like, well, why'd you download my book? Like, it's clearly for CrossFit people. And she's like, well, I was looking for motivation and you gave it to
Mhm.
me. And I was
That's
like,
it.
it made me like really happy and proud of that. But so, okay, so prior to that, what
Mhm.
was the turning point in your life?
Um, that moment of the moment of truth. Um, I couldn't walk very well. Um, I was on canes, couldn't get around my house very well. I couldn't even visit the upper or lower floors because there was stairs, and they had just gotten too hard. So I was literally isolated to kind of my main floor. So that was the first thing. The
You were
second
like
thing was,
becoming the TV show.
oh yeah. Yeah, totally.
That's
I
why
couldn't, yeah, for
that's what
sure.
I joke about with my buddy Murph all these years later. I'm like, you were either going to be on reality TV or you were going to lose weight. Like there was no in between at this point.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly. It was either that, or I was going to end up on that show, that one.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you realize
Um,
you can't get to the second floor anymore. You're
yep.
basically becoming immobile.
Yeah,
There had to have been a spark, right?
there was. I had a bottle of. I was on a lot of painkillers, and when I say painkillers, I mean there was a concoction of all kinds of things. But my drug of choice was hydrocodones. So I was taking, 5 or 6 a day, and that's how bad the pain was. I mean, I just couldn't move without it
And this
hurting.
was pre-surgery. This was simply
Yeah.
you're in pain because you're 500 pounds.
Yeah, there's like, how do you describe it to somebody that's never carried that kind of weight?
Yeah, I want to know. I want to know what that feels.
Like every time that you step down, you feel this throbbing in your ankles, and it radiates to your knees. And then if you have bad knees, it pains there. Your back hurts all day. There's no comfortable position, standing, sleeping, laying down. You hurt all the time. You're in physical pain all day long.
I think we can make the assumption that you probably wouldn't have needed the knee surgery if not for this weight. All these years later.
It could have happened. I mean, I had an extra condition on the right. I might not have needed it on the left. That's correct. But
okay.
It was probably inevitable on the right.
Have you done a workout since losing the weight where you're like, oh, this is what it used to feel like? Like you're so sore that you're like, this is what it used to feel like? Like, can I beat myself up enough in a CrossFit workout that I can understand the pain you were in?
I don't know. I mean, I've been through some pretty hellish workouts, and I don't know if that would compare. It's a different kind of pain.
Right. Is it like where you just like wake up during the night in pain?
Like, have you ever had let's see, I'm trying to think of something have you ever had a horrible Charlie horse in your legs?
Yes.
Like the worst Charlie horse you've ever had. Well, take that Charlie horse, probably multiply it by 3, and then it doesn't go away. So you're popping pills because it's a constant state all day.
So you were getting,
know if that would do it, but
no, and I get it. I don't think I'm trying to understand what your body felt like, but I think just hearing what you're describing, we get it. We've never been there.
It's agony. Yeah.
So your doctor says, hey, you're 500 pounds, but let me prescribe you these drugs rather than let me tell you need to lose some weight?
Well, yes. They had to prescribe the pills so that I could at least function. I mean, I still had to work, but the pills have side effects. They make you sleepy and a myriad of other things. But at least my legs weren't hurting. But then it just caused all kinds of other stuff. But no, their first recommendation was bariatric surgery.
And what was your response to that?
I didn't like the idea at first, but eventually I was pretty convinced that they were right. The legs had gotten so bad that they were essentially saying, hey, Athena, if you don't do something about this weight right now, you're going to be in a wheelchair. And it was that serious. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll have the surgery. And for a year, I went down that whole road. I went to all the classes that you have to go through, and you have to go see a shrink, and you have to pass all these tests, and the ultimate goal is to get this magic green light that the doctor / team of people that are working with you in the bariatric surgery process give you. And it's that little green light just basically says, yes, we think she's sane. She knows what she's getting into, and we approve her for surgery.
And what was that process like? Was it, you're going through this, or is part of you thinking, should I just eat better? Should I just,
No, I don't think any of that ever crossed my mind. I think by the time I was going through that process, I had pretty much resigned myself to the belief that this was it. There is no other alternative. I had come to the end of the road, and I was just, dragging along like, okay, this is it. So I think it was more like going through the motions. I was just numb. I don't think I was thinking a whole lot about it. I strongly disliked it, but I was desperate. I didn't know what else to do.
And then what was your first step, and what was your next step?
Well, you have to go through this whole big long thing, and then you get your green light, as they call it, and then you get insurance approval, and then I got that, and then they set me up for a surgery date that was supposed to happen in January of 17.
And
So okay, so here we are. We're at Christmas, and I couldn't go visit my family because, as I call it, I got too big to fly. Now, it doesn't mean that I couldn't have probably got 2 seats and I might have been okay. It wasn't buying the 2 seats that had me worried. It was, I didn't know how I was going to get from the car down to the terminal. Like, just to visualize the trip that far, it made me not go. So I was stuck by myself.
for the holidays, mind
For the
you.
holidays, right.
You're home alone. You're
I'm
Macaulay
home
Culkin.
alone, Macaulay Culkin during Christmas. And
are you thinking to yourself, I might as well just eat whatever I want because I'm having this surgery?
yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So yes, that did happen. But there's a downside to that, because once you start that bariatric surgery process, they put you on a scale right when you first start. And if you gain any weight over that process, they will kick you out of it. So what was happening was I was getting depressed on the off weeks, and I was eating whatever I wanted. And then what I would have to do is I would have to, not eat for a couple days so I could get those couple pounds off. So when they went to put you back on the scale for your next check-in, I wouldn't show that I was up. Like, it can't be up more than like it's a fraction of a percentage, because your weight fluctuates, right? But
when you're at 500 pounds, you
yeah.
can, like we talked about, you can kind of
Mm-hmm.
eat what you want and probably not really gain a lot.
Well, yeah, you know what? Can you imagine how many calories it would take at 500 pounds just to maintain that weight? You'd need 3,000 or 4,000 calories just to sustain.
What would you say you were taking in on a daily basis?
Oh, I knew exactly what I was taking in. It was upwards of probably 6,000 calories a day.
How are you doing that?
A lot of nuts. I still do. I eat a lot of peanut butter and nut butters. It doesn't take a whole lot of nut butters to get a lot of calories. But then I used to eat a lot of, bread, donuts.
But you weren't like crushing Chick-fil-A every day.
No, not really. I didn't want to go anywhere. So
right. So that's what I'm assuming. Like,
yeah.
Are you even going grocery shopping at this point?
Not physically. So my closest friend had to do my grocery shopping for me, or I had to do a grocery delivery service just to get my
Instacart.
groceries. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Your closest friend, are you still friendly with her?
Still friendly with him. Yes.
Him?
Yeah.
Let's not dive too deep into it, but is he enabling you at this point?
No.
No, not now. I'm saying then. In other words, my friend's 500 pounds and she's telling me to go out and buy donuts and jars of nuts. I'm like, no, here's what I'm buying you. I'm buying you some fruits and vegetables, some nuts and seeds, some fruit, little whatever, So it's hard. I had imagined this guy is not in an enviable position.
No.
But, and he's your friend, so he cares about you. But is part of him like, hey, I'm enabling Athena to do this?
I will say it was probably unintentional enabling. Yes.
Yeah.
Very unintentional, but enabling. Yes.
So what ultimately was your reason for going against it?
For going against the surgery?
Yes.
So I was watching these horror stories on YouTube one night, and I just kept watching. I just couldn't stop watching the videos.
Dude, YouTube's a rabbit hole.
Oh, I got on YouTube. Exactly. Went down a rabbit hole, started watching one video, and then it went to another. And it's all these people that were like, if I hadn't gotten the surgery, I wouldn't have. I regret it. And there was people that had had it multiple times. Like, I couldn't even believe, like, you could have this more than once.
that, right?
Yeah. And then, there was this one chick that I remember, she had lost 200 pounds and she gained it all back. And I'm like, how does that happen? I understand gaining weight back. We fluctuate. We can gain 10 or 15 pounds and then lose 10 or 15. Like, I get all that. But how do you gain back 200 pounds after going through that the first time? Like, how can you even consume that on a stomach the size of an egg? I just
Lots
didn't
of
get it.
soda. Lots of
Yeah,
soda.
probably. Yeah. So I was
So
like, well, what am I doing if I can't learn to get the eating side of this under control, then the surgery is not going to help me, because I'm going to be exactly the same way. If you don't learn to eat right, and you don't learn all these things, then the surgery is just a Band-Aid.
yeah, I mean, not that many of the listeners listen to Howard Stern, but there's a regular guest who had this surgery and he
Mm-hmm.
has gained it all back. And it's those, like you said, your stomach is smaller, but it's a lot of those sodas. It's a lot of, very calorically dense foods that don't
Mm-hmm.
fill up your stomach, and you can push it. It's like your stomach now. I mean, I just watched the hot dog eating contest, right? Those guys stretch their stomach out and then it goes back. It's like training. They're not training for weight, they're training for food. So you come to this conclusion. Do you
Yeah.
remember the first thing you did on this journey, like the first real actionable step you took?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I cleaned out my entire kitchen, any cupboard or refrigerator, freezer, anything that had food in it. That was the first thing that happened. And it was basically very similar to the CrossFit diet. I mean, if it wasn't, lean beef or chicken, fish, nuts, seeds, fruits, veggies, eggs, it wasn't gonna be part of my plan. So
Where did you even get that knowledge and information from at the time?
know what? I mean, I think we all have a general understanding of
Yeah,
good foods versus bad foods,
agreed. It's like I can blame my parents that when I was a
Yeah.
kid, there were SnackWells in the house, which were, fat free. So that changed my belief a little bit on food. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, we're all smart enough to know, hey, these things called vegetables are good. I should eat more of these. And, these things that taste delicious,
Yeah, I mean,
I should eat less of, right?
you can put a donut or a carrot in front of a 5-year-old, and the 5-year-old would probably be able to pick out, hey, what's more healthy? You know what I mean? So I don't think it was, I think I always knew what I should be doing. I suppose maybe I just didn't want to. That's
That's a great way to put it. And I think we're all there. I mean, even days when I'm eating, like an asshole, it's not like it's not like all of a sudden I get, nutrition amnesia and I forget what's good or
Yeah,
bad. I'm just like, no, I don't want it today.
that's
It's like
really what it boils down to, right? We just don't want to. I mean, you're stressed out. I open up my fridge. I mean, even now, would I rather have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or would I rather have a carrot? That's a no-brainer.
how careful do we have to be around Athena these days? Can you talk about these things and you feel okay? Like, okay, I can talk about donuts and I'm not concerned Athena's going to go grab some donuts after this call.
No. Well, see, this is the downside about not having you read that book. I think you're going to discover I'm pretty resilient.
Well, you're no doubt resilient. I mean, I'm not truly worried about you, right now, because you don't lose that weight, keep it off, continue to lose weight, and do all the other amazing things you're doing right now that we still need to talk about. But it's like, I have friends, close friends, family members that are in different programs out there, whether it's alcohol or drugs or gambling, etc. And you're just always like, okay, what can I do around this person? Can I have a drink? Is this going to be the drink that sets them off after 20 years?
I totally see where you're going with that. That's a great question.
Can I go out with you at the games next year and know that it's my cheat night and not feel guilty that you're going to try to be good and go off the rails on Sunday?
Totally. Yeah. But I think that took a long time to get to. And there are times when I still don't have that wired, because when I was down from surgeries, there was a lot of carbohydrate days. because I don't know why, because I was feeling like crap. And
Yeah.
I wasn't in the headspace to be making good choices, and I didn't. But on a day-to-day, no, I'm not worried about that.
I would guess after the surgery, because you're probably taking painkillers, your body resorted back to what you were doing when you were taking hydrocodone. And it was just like, okay, this is what I do. I take these drugs and I eat bad food. And it was
Well,
as you...
sort of. During the surgeries, I think it had more to do with, CrossFit became my, how I handled stress, and it became my life. And when that got taken away, then I resorted back to what I knew how to handle
Right.
stress, and that was food. So yes, you're right.
Fair point. So when did you go to CrossFit for the first time, and
Mm-hmm.
how did you find it?
Found it by a friend of mine had kept getting tagged in pictures. I'd seen he belonged to a CrossFit gym, and he was always getting tagged in pictures, and I saw him. I mean,
Is
I
this the
never
same
paid.
friend?
No, different guy.
Okay.
So I knew he belonged to a CrossFit gym, but he was a friend of a trainer that was there, and I started trolling his website, um, and then I thought, well, CrossFit wasn't what was jumping out at me. It was this individual. I thought, well, I know I'm not ready for CrossFit. At least that was what was in my mind at the time. But maybe this person can help me walk again. So really, that was the first goal, was just to. I mean, it was nothing more than, hey, maybe I can learn how to walk without my canes. That would be great.
So and this was in
Yeah,
Minnesota, correct?
yeah.
So
So
what box did you go to?
I started off at CrossFit Lakeville. It's a little south of the Twin Cities.
Okay, and then what was your first exposure when you walked into the
Mm-hmm.
box?
So my very first day of being in a CrossFit box was the last day of the 2017 Open. So
Some sort of thruster and rowing workout, if I remember
yeah,
correctly.
it
Okay.
was insane. And I met a couple that was there that night, and they tapped me on my shoulder, and they looked at me and they were like, hey, a year from now, that's going to be you out there. And I was like, you've lost your mind. and I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. So yeah, it was very intimidating. There were all different kinds of athletes. I mean, I did notice there were all different kinds though.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, that's not going to be for me. I'm just going to learn how to walk again. That's it.
So were you out there a year later?
I was. Yeah.
That's do you
Yeah.
talk to those two people that tapped you on the shoulder ever and let them know?
I mean, yeah, they were the ones that were in the front row cheering me on a year later, surprisingly. And it was pretty magical.
So you're doing CrossFit, you start losing weight.
Yeah.
At what point did you decide, okay, I'm going to take my level 1?
Oh, Savant had asked me during the podcast if it was something I'd ever considered. And I thought, I was very naive. I thought, well, that's just reserved for people that want to coach. So I wasn't thinking about coaching then. So I was like, well, I don't need to take the level 1. What am I going to get out of that? I don't want to coach. Little did I know that the level 1 is something that I wish I would have taken, like in my first 3 months of CrossFit. It would have taught me how to just be a better athlete.
I think, people, even to this day, when I meet people and I encourage them to take their level 1, their response is either I'm not going to coach, or I'm not ready for it, I'm not fit enough. But every weekend, before the pandemic, we'd have 40 or 50 people, and maybe 10 to 15 of them ultimately want to coach. The rest of them are there to learn more about it, and just to continue to dive into this thing, like much like you, that's changed their life. So you attend the podcast, which you could still, I think, find on. I think the original CrossFit podcast is still out there. You can, listen to you talk on there, and then you go take your level one.
Yep.
What did that change for you?
Oh man, I think one of the biggest takeaways, he's still my favorite, Coach Eubanks. So he was
Coach Dave,
Dave.
right?
I had really struggled my whole life with this condition that I had on my right leg. It's not there anymore. The surgery got rid of it. But my leg used to bow really bad. And during this level one, I was always trying to do it like everyone else. I was always trying to do a squat like everyone else and keep my leg in the position that everybody else had it, thinking that that was what I was supposed to do. And of all people, it was Dave that came over and said, "Why do you keep trying to do it like that? Your leg isn't built like that." And I'm like, "Well, I thought this is how I was supposed to do a squat." And he goes, "Well, you're supposed to do a squat how your body will allow you to do a squat." So it was just something that clicked. And I don't know why that had always been such a struggle, but it changed everything after that. I'm like, why am I trying so hard to do it like everyone else when I won't be able to do it like everyone else? Like, this is special, this is different, and I need to be okay with how I can do it.
Leave it to Dave. He's one of the best out there. There's
He's
a reason he's
amazing.
and that's also ultimately where you met Greg Amundsen that weekend too, right?
Yes.
So had you not gone to your level, I mean, it's like me, right? Have you not gone to your level one, I wouldn't have met my wife. Had you not gone
Mm-hmm.
to your level one, you don't meet Greg Amundsen. There's no book
Yep.
potentially.
Correct.
So after your level one, you were telling me, and this is obviously years later,
Mm-hmm.
your goal is to open your own affiliate.
That's right.
Right now.
Right now. Yeah.
So most people this time in their lives, it's like the pandemic, gyms are shutting, California just shut down again. We need to get out of this gym industry, but you're diving into it.
Yes. One, because of where it's at. So it's in my garage. It's a humble 20 by 20 garage box. But I figure, you know what? That's how all the good ones used to start.
400 square feet. My
That's
first
right.
box started with 800.
That's right.
So, not much bigger.
And yeah, so I figured that's a positive. The other one is, I negotiated a really sweet deal with the landlord,
Yeah.
And so she cut me this incredible deal on the space out there. So, in all seriousness, if things go to hell in a handbasket this fall again, and we all go back into quarantine, and we all don't have our boxes, I didn't want that to happen again. I still have to finish what I started, and I didn't want to get off track again, and I wanted to have that available. The other thing was, I looked at my own journey, and people reach out every day. I don't think a day has gone by where I don't hear from somebody, saw my story or whatever, somebody new I meet on Instagram. And a lot of them are in that position of they feel like they can't go to a box because of how much they weigh. They're embarrassed to go. And I wanted to be able to create something that people could attend virtually, and they could be in a box with people that look just like them, with a coach that looks just like them, that understands where they're at and where they're coming from. And I just wanted to have a different demographic and really work with people that were where I started.
Do you already have the equipment there?
No, that's actually an ongoing process right now. So right now we're in the
Good luck with that.
I'm having it's piecemealing. So I get like one box, one barbell at a time, and yeah, it's probably going to be an ongoing process for the next 2 months. But
yeah, I've got a bunch of notify me when
you're
these are
like,
back in on Rogue
good luck.
Fitness. Yeah,
and that's what I do. I've signed up and I have notifications on just about every product on there. Just like the other day, it said, "Hey, this bar's back in stock." I ran upstairs that moment, got on the computer, ordered the darn barbells, because I knew if I didn't order it at that minute, I was not going to see them again for another 8 weeks. So that's what I have to do with everything.
That's what we're trying to put the garage gym together. I've got the foldable squat rack on hold. I got a barbell on hold. In the meantime, just doing what we can do. So what's it like all of these years later to be the motivator, not the motivatee?
That is really surreal because I would not have pegged myself that person. Like I had let myself down my whole life. So uh I'm still in shock.
Is there like a bit of imposter syndrome? Someone
Um,
comes up to you and you've motivated them, like, because I have that to this day, like, who am I to help this person? And you forget, for me, it's the years of coaching, but for you, it's
mhm.
the, those 200 pounds are incredible. And for a lot of people, like, you're their inspiration.
um, I've heard that term and I've heard people talk about it. I don't know that I've ever experienced it like that, but I will say what I have experienced. Um, I had trouble dealing with the fact that I am still very plus size. And um, I always wondered, well, why would they want to train with me, or how can I motivate them? Because I didn't finish yet. This is still a work in progress. But to your point, same thing. I forget that where they're trying to go is what I already did. So that's motivating, that's inspiring. And I don't know. It always it amazes me. I have trouble saying thank you, and I don't know why.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, you being in the midst of your journey is partly what motivates them because you understand it. I think it's why I've had success in the nutrition, industry as well, because it's still a struggle for me every day. So when
Mm-hmm.
someone messages me and is, I'm going through this or I'm going through that, I get it because I had a
Yeah.
crappy day yesterday too, and it took all
Yep.
I could not to stop at Chipotle, and get double wrap
Totally.
burrito. So I
Yep.
think
Yep.
there's part of it, the best coach, the best athletes sometimes make the worst coaches because they don't understand it. You get it. You
Mm-hmm.
understand what it's like to,
Yeah.
to to be in the thick of it. What what was it like for you with everything that went down in CrossFit? Because for me, it was tough
Oh,
because it changed my life, for a very, very different reason than it changed yours.
yeah.
But how did it impact you differently, knowing that, like, hey, this is the thing that truly saved my life? And now everybody's basically, for lack of a better term, like crapping on it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Um, I cried a couple days. I was mortified at what was going on. It was different for me. Yeah, I think you said it well. It wasn't something that I could say, well, I'll just compete in some other competition, or hey, we're going to form this union and we're going to start competing over here. This literally saved my life, and I was going to stand by it until it crumbled. And I was
Yeah,
pretty determined.
luckily it didn't, right?
Thank goodness. But I was gonna. Uh, I didn't want the whole palace to come down because of one person. I feel like CrossFit had gotten so much bigger than that, and the community. It was everything. It was, yeah. It was hard to watch.
And, and obviously now things appear to be moving in a great direction. But yeah, it must have been,
Hmm.
it's hard for so many people. And that was what I was just trying to make clear with all my posts. It's like, hey, this isn't one person. This is CrossFit. The fact that
Yeah.
Athena
Yeah.
has lost 200 plus pounds, the fact that she's now an inspiration to others, like, that's CrossFit.
Yeah.
One dude, you know, tweeting and saying horrible things is not CrossFit.
Could not. I could not agree more.
So if anyone were to scroll through your Instagram, I mean,
Hmm.
you got a who's who of pictures, meaning from Greg Amundsen to Rory to Tyson to
Yep.
Noah.
Yep.
So many people that you've probably looked up to, you've met. Who's your favorite CrossFit celebrity?
Oh, I have a couple. I write about them in my book, actually. So there's a handful of them. So we've got Tasia, we got Noah.
Tasia, the
Or
year that we
Savage.
went to Aromas, I was her chaperone. Yeah, we've kind of remained friendly ever since. She's a great girl. Yeah.
She's amazing.
Who'd you
Dan
say after
Bailey.
Tasia? Who you said somebody after Tasia?
Tasia, Noah.
Noah, okay.
Noah,
Dan
love
Bailey.
him. Dan Bailey, Cole Sager, Rich Froning, and Chris Spieler.
So clearly faith is a big part. You've chosen a lot of these athletes that also share your, I don't know what the right word is, your faith or love for faith. Is that a big part of it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you've clearly made a connection with Tyson, who introduced us.
Yes.
And I see pictures with Rory, but yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with all those people you've mentioned.
Yeah.
Who was the person that you met that you were the most starstruck around?
Oh, starstruck. Okay, so funny thing. when I started doing when I came out to do the podcast and all this other stuff, I had a much different introduction to all of this than I think a lot of people do. I had no idea who anybody was. So like Noah, for instance, when I first met him, I had no idea who he was. I did not know that he was a big CrossFit athlete. I got to meet him just as a guy that was sitting next to me at the table and talk to him and just get to know him that way. So I didn't have all these people way up here because I didn't know anything about any of the game side of the house. Just, you know what I mean? That's kind of weird,
That's
right?
important for people to hear, though, because even with what went down with CrossFit, something I said repeatedly was like, most people don't know who this guy is.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's the same with like these best athletes. Like, cool, like this is great that your handful of members watch the games, but Athena didn't join because she saw the games. Athena joined because one of your regular members inspired her.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to remember.
Yeah, in fact, when Savon was doing the podcast, one of his questions was, he goes, "Hey, do you know Patrick Velmer? He's number 2 in the world." And I remember shaking my head. I was like, nope, never heard of him. I didn't know who he was.
Who's she? Yeah.
Yeah. Who's she? So I wasn't, I didn't have so to say starstruck, I don't know that I was because they were never that to me. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. What inspired you to then show up at the games and volunteer?
I just I'd heard about the games since I'd started and everybody kept saying, you got to go. It's an experience that you can't describe. And I didn't know what that meant, but I thought, well, let's go experience it. And then of course I got hooked because
You there, Athena? Hello.
reason that we're all inspired by the same thing. That's what makes it so cool.
Cool. I dropped you for a second, but I think we understood what you just said. So I'm going to let you get moving in a sec. Anything else you wanted to share with our listeners, with our audience about your book, your journey, anything else that's gone on over the last few years for you? Okay, hopefully everything went right. My internet all of a sudden just dropped. But anyway, I was basically wrapping up and wanted to ask you, is there anything else you wanted to share about your journey, about your book? Obviously, we want to direct people to go buy Lifting the Weight. I assume it's on Amazon, and if you Google it, you're going to find it. Anything else you wanted to share?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that, I just want to tell people that there's a little something for everybody in there. And I don't think that you have to lose weight. You don't have to be even a CrossFitter to understand the book and to get something out of it. And I'm honored to share.
Well, that's great. And yeah, the same thing that I was trying to do with my book, right? It's like, hey, we may have a very specific small niche in this world, but really we're writing it for everybody. Everyone
Yeah.
can use a little motivation in their life, regardless of where they're trying to achieve that.
Yeah,
Well,
totally agree.
it's been a pleasure chatting with you. And I would say I'd see you at the games this year, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I'm sure I'll see you soon. How about we say
yes,
that?
I'll see you soon. And in the meantime, really, best of luck with your garage gym.
Thank you.
And with your continued journey and everything else you do. I look forward to you hitting 8 bestseller lists in the near future. Hopefully this book or hopefully this podcast pushes you over the edge there. So,
well, I appreciate it, man. I thank you so much for everything.
yeah. And one last shout out for Tyson for introducing us. So thanks so much, Tyson.
Tyson is, can I give him a little spot here?
Of course.
He's him and Tyson and Mike Koslap are, they're my family, and just truly amazing men.
Yeah, awesome human beings. So
yeah
everyone that you've mentioned on the show are people that I respect and consider friends. So really, from Dave to Tyson to all the athletes you mentioned, and what's the common denominator? CrossFit. So there you go, Athena Perez. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering podcasts. That's right. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now, Best Hour of Their Day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day.
Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't already, do us a favor, head over to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback for either Fern or myself, hit us up, besthouroftheirday@gmail.com, or send us a DM over on Instagram at Best Hour of Their Day. Once again, we couldn't do this without the amazing community, and you are a part of it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting Best Hour of Their Day.